All right, I got another question on Quora. Is there a difference between intellectual property rights and intellectual property law? My name is Andrei Minkoff and I'm the founder of Trademark Factory, and here's my answer to this question. Well, the difference is that intellectual property rights is something that you own or something that you have to deal with because there is intellectual property law. So intellectual property law is what regulates intellectual property rights. It's what makes sure that under certain circumstances you are deemed the owner of intellectual property rights, or somebody else is deemed the owner of those intellectual property rights, and that creates certain obligations for you and for others in terms of how you or they use other people's intellectual property rights. So think about it, the difference as, for example, physical property, right? So when you own the phone, when you buy a phone, right, that's your property right, right? You own it. But there is law that regulates property, right? Whether it's civil code, whether it's some other law, depending on the country, it's dealt with differently. But the law, again, is what regulates a certain area of relationships, and rights is that which that law regulates. Reed Harvey asks me on Quora, a company in my same sector has trademarked the brand name I am using. What are my options? This is so sad to get to the point when you have a business, you have a brand name that you think is your brand name, you have been using it for some time, and then somebody else in the same sector goes out there, trademarks the same name, and all you got left is worry about what's your next step, what can you do now, what are your options, right? That's the situation that's so easily avoidable because you could have been the one who trademarked the name first, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. You wouldn't have to look for options. You wouldn't have to try to figure out, is there anything that can be done, right? And you would be able to enforce that right, enforce that trademark against anybody else in the same industry. So I'm taking you didn't do that. So somebody else came into the market and trademarked the brand name you're using, right? Because you didn't really say when they trademarked it and who started using it first. So when you say, what are my options? I'm going to have a few assumptions. So the first option is, and it's probably not the option you like to hear, is change the name, right? They trademarked it, you gotta go and change the name, right? And this time around, find a name that you can own and make sure you trademark it right away. The benefit of this is that it allows you to start clean with building a business on a good foundation so that you have a brand that you can own. Make sure it's a unique, memorable, and protectable brand, and just go with that. The disadvantage of that, of course, is you're probably going to have to spend a lot of money on the rebranding. You're going to have to spend a lot of marketing efforts on educating your existing client base that your name has changed, why it changed, to what it has changed. You know, they'll have to change their bookmarks and all of that stuff. So there's a downside of that, of course, but that's an option, right? Come up with something else. Your second option is, if you are using this name first and you can prove it, then you could, in theory, sue them, take them to court, and say, well, we somehow missed that you wanted to trademark this, so we didn't oppose it in time. But now that your trademark is registered, well, hello, we can prove that we were there first. And we want you to stop doing this and abandon your trademark, cancel it, or transfer it over to us. This will probably cost a lot of money. Can you win? Maybe. Really depending on how widely known you are under that brand name. If nobody knows you under that brand, maybe you had a company under that brand, but you haven't really done much, and you got 10 people who know you under that brand, your chances of winning lawsuit against somebody who is registered a trademark are slim to none, almost non-existent. However, if you've built a huge client base around the country, around the world, and a lot of people know you under that brand, and somebody else goes out and trademarks it, then your chances should be pretty good. So again, there's a lot of variables there, and but that's again another option to consider. Another option to consider is to go to them and settle and say, come up with a solution that works for everyone. Compromise, right? Maybe you pay them a little bit and they give up the name and you own the brand, or they pay you a little bit so that you can use that money towards rebranding, or there may be some other ways of coexisting under the same brand. So this is really a matter of what can you agree to that both parties are going to be happy with. Your other option is to continue doing what you do under your brand. So let's say again, you were there first and somebody else goes out and trademarks it. So because you had prior use, they can't stop you from continuing doing what you've always been doing. So if you were, let's say, a restaurant in Las Vegas and somebody else trademarks that name, then they will own the federal trademark in the name, but you can continue running your restaurant in Las Vegas. But their trademark, they'll be able to use it against you if you wanted to expand. So for example, you had this restaurant in Las Vegas and you wanted to start another restaurant in, I don't know, San Francisco. If they had a federal trademark, they'd be able to go after you and stop you. So if you're not planning to grow, if you're planning to stay exactly where you were when they trademarked their brand, you might get away with really doing nothing and waiting for them to go after you and then say, no, we were there first. So the upside of that is you don't have to do anything really other than wait. The downside of that is the wait could often lead to you getting those lawsuit papers. Lawsuits are expensive, lawsuits are unpredictable, and it's not really the situation that you want to put yourself in. And even if they don't sue you, even if nothing happens, you still end up building a brand you don't own. And as I always say, there's no reason in the world to spend a minute of your life or $1 out of your pocket building a brand you don't own. So that's probably not a good option. So you may be thinking, are there any good options? Really, the answer is no. That's the whole idea behind trademarks. When you own the trademark, you hold all the good cards. It's tremendously difficult for somebody to challenge your mark, to do something that would prevent you from exercising your rights in the brand that you trademarked. And conversely, if you don't own the trademark and somebody else does, it's very difficult for you to do something with them that wouldn't cost you an arm and a leg. That's the whole premise around trademark registration, which is why we always recommend that if you're a business owner, one of the first things you want to do, get a domain name, get a company name and get a trademark and get the social media profiles. You want this all. One does not replace the other. You can't just register your LLC or an S Corp or whatever and think that your brand is now protected, because it isn't. You can't just get a domain name, build a website, and think that you now own the brand and that it's protected, because it isn't. You can't just get, a social media profile on Facebook or on YouTube or whatever, Instagram, and think that you now own your brand, because you don't. The only way to own your brand is to trademark it. There's no other way around it. So when somebody else does it, you find yourself in a difficult situation. So Sophia Smith asks me on Quora, can you trademark your business without a lawyer? Well, in theory, yes. In most countries, you're not required to have a lawyer to represent you to file your trademark. There are exceptions, and especially these exceptions would apply if you're not a resident to the country where you're trying to get a trademark. For example, US has just implemented a new approach. So if you're not a resident of the United States, you gotta have a US attorney represent you before USPTO. But the general rule is you can file your trademark without a lawyer, without somebody who knows what they're doing. The concern that I have with that is, if you are asking this question on Quora, my assumption is you don't know enough about trademarks to successfully file your trademark. I mean, filing is easy. Getting it registered is difficult, because after you file your trademark, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many months later, you're gonna hear back from the trademarks office, and they're gonna let you know what they don't like about your application. They're gonna issue an office action, and in most cases, self-represented trademark applicants don't know how to answer those, and often by the time they get it, it's too late for somebody else to save them, to fix it, and the whole application has to be abandoned, and really nobody is happy about it. So, you can fix your own teeth, you can wash your own car, you can do a lot of things yourself, you can, mow your own grass. But as a business owner, you have to make choices, you have to make decisions as to, is this the best use of my time? Is this the best use of my knowledge to do certain things? I mean, look, trademarks is not rocket science. Every trademark attorney, every trademark expert, every trademark agent at some point didn't know anything about trademark law, and they were able to learn it. They were able to master it. They were able to become those specialists that now know the answers to most of the questions right away. Right? There are books. There are, there's this huge multi-volume book in the US that we use. There's a lot of books in Canada that we use. So all the information is out there. And if you want to take the time and learn how to do it right, I don't have a doubt that you would be able to find the answers and do it right eventually. The question is it worth your time as the business owner? And my answer is probably not. So can you do it? Yes. Is it a good idea? No. I hope this answers your question. And like I said, based on your question, I'm assuming you don't know enough about trademarks. So I suggest you subscribe to this channel, because I answer a lot of questions on this channel, and I highlight a lot of issues that you deal with when it comes to trademarks, one way or the other. So make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and get notified whenever the next video goes live. And if you have more questions for me, make sure you post a comment below, and I'll try to create a new video that would answer your question. And until then, I will see you in the next video.